It is a small departure from our usual habit, but I'll invite you to turn to page 412. Page 412, almost to the very end of our Sidurim. There's all sorts of wonderful teachings and literature at the back of the Sidur. If you've never taken time to leaf through its pages, well, make sure you do someday. But for now, we are looking at page 412 because it is one of the many selections that focuses on the topic of Pesach. As you can see, the poem is called Magid, one of the primary sections of the Haggadah, of the Seder itself. And we read this not only in honor of the holiday of Pesach, but also as we will be focused even more so on the idea of refugees during our service tomorrow. And perhaps this will get us thinking in the right way about our own paths that we have walked, the many times our people and from different places have been forced to become homeless and wander as well. And certainly for Passover, we can feel that acutely as we leave the land of Egypt. So please read together with me from the poem by Marge Piercy. The courage to let go of the door, the handle, the courage to shed the familiar walls whose very stains and leaks are comfortable as the little moles of the upper arm, stains that recall a feast, a child's naughtiness, a loud blattering storm that slapped the roof hard, pouring through. The courage to abandon the graves dug into the hills, the small bones of children and the brittle bones of the old whose marrow hunger had stolen. The courage to desert the tree planted and only begun to bear, the riverside where promises were shaped, the street where the empty pots were broken. The courage to leave the place whose language you learned as early as your own, whose customs, however dangerous or demeaning, bind you like a halter you have learned to pull inside to move your load. The land fertile with the blood spilled on it, the roads mapped and annotated for survival. The courage to walk out of the pain that is known into the pain that cannot be imagined. Mapless, walking into the wilderness, going barefoot with a canteen into the desert, stuffed in the stinking hold of a rotting ship sailing off the map into dragons' mouths. Cathay, India, Siberia, Golden Medina, leaving bodies by the way like abandoned treasure. So they walked out of Egypt. So they bribed their way out of Russia under loads of straw. So they steamed out of the bloody, smoking charnel house of Europe on overloaded freighters forbidden all ports. Out of pain into death or freedom or a different painful dignity, into squalor and politics. We Jews are all born of wanderers, with shoes under our pillows and a memory of blood that is ours raining down. We honor only those Jews who changed tonight, those who chose the desert over bondage, who walked into the strange and became strangers, and gave birth to children who could look down on them standing on their shoulders for having been slaves. We honor those who let go of everything but freedom, who ran, who revolted, who fought, who became other by saving themselves. For those of you who came in just now, we are on page 412, reflecting on the poem Magid. The path of our people has been rough. Unlike most nations that are still on the face of the earth, we acknowledge that we have moved. We acknowledge that we have not always been in the place where we currently stand. Even within the land of Israel, we recognize in the very story of Passover itself that our ancestor Abraham and Sarah came from across the river. They are Ivri. They are those that have passed over. And those that came later ended in Egypt, forced out by famine from the land of Canaan, and there in Egypt turned into slaves. And only a time, it was much later, were they able to escape, to wander in the desert, to stay, to prepare, and to eventually return to the land of Israel. But from the land of Israel, our people have been scattered over the millennia to the four corners of the world. Other nations, too, have similar stories, but Our nation is the only one who tells it with pride. If you ask the French who they are, they'll tell you they're the French. If you say, well, where are the French from? They'll say, we've always been here, which is a lie, or at the very least misleading. The people that are now inhabiting the land that we call the French are not the original inhabitants of that land. They are the Franks and the Gauls who came as they were driven eastward by the Huns, who were driven eastward by the Mongolians, who were driven further and further west, into the shores of Western Europe. And yet they act that they have never had to wander, that they have never had to move. But we know the truth. All people on earth have wandered. All nations have wandered. What makes them a nation is the identity that they share. And while others may make their nationhood around a fiction of somehow eternally being in one place, we have made our nationhood out of being, not simply in one place, although Israel is always linked dearly in our heart, but of being one people regardless of the place, that we are able to express our Judaism and to express our community in the simplest of circumstances and in palaces, that we were able to do so under the worst hardships and at the greatest ease, that we were able to find measures of joy even when all we had was matzah on our back as we trudged out of the land of Egypt. Judaism binds us together by reminding us that there is no substitute for being bound together. You may think that you can find security by being within certain borders, by holding a certain passport, but Judaism and our history tells us that is a lie. A passport is no guarantee against upheaval. The security of being within borders that are friendly today does not mean that they will be friendly next year or 50 years or 1,000 years from now. Instead, we are bound together because we choose to be bound together. And we choose to rather be bound together wherever we may be forced to wander than to be cast adrift as individuals within an uncaring land that asks us to yield that identity for some perceived momentary safety. We have endured because we have prioritized enduring together. We have endured because that is what it is to be Jewish, to recognize there is something in our calling, our unique destiny, that is worth wandering the world for. We do not wish to do so. We wish that we and all people can find a place of peace and a place of rest. But we recognize that the true peace will come from within and come through the connections and come through the relationships that we build and maintain. This is the ultimate lesson of the Magid, of the telling of the Passover story. And we will talk about that in more detail during our service tomorrow as we focus on the status of refugees of our own as well as many others around the world. The millions of people who wander without perhaps the experience that we can offer, without perhaps the wisdom born of thousands of years of existence that we can give.